Many officers killed, a powerful Ukrainian attack on Crimea and on the most important ship of the Russian fleet. The Russian army could not withstand the rapid strike in Donbas and is retreating in panic. There will be no end to the war. Putin has sent a bold message to Trump and Zelensky. The murder of a Ukrainian woman in the USA. The killer confessed to the motives behind the crime. A utilities collapse in occupied Donetsk. Now, in addition to water, electricity has also disappeared there. Hello, my name is Yulia Kokan, and right now here are the top stories. But first, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose touch with you on YouTube. And let's start with news from the front. Recently, Putin threatened the Americans that he would capture the entire Donbas by the end of the year. But as always, it seems he's mistaking wishful thinking for reality. Despite the enemy's advantage, thanks to a spectacular attack, Ukraine's defense forces pushed the occupiers back near Vladimirovka and Shakov in the Donetsk region. In turn, the enemy advanced in the Serebryansky forestry near Poltavka and Pankovka. This was reported by deep state analysts. In the Veliko-Mikhailivka direction, in the Dnipropetrovsk region, it has become known that the occupiers have effectively captured the village of Sosnivka. This was reported by a soldier with the call sign Maknoy.
The settlement of Sosnivka has come under enemy control. A number of rags were displayed in the village. Next, as I understand it, Aristopol will be the following target. Enemy aviation has already started operating intensively. Preparations for further movement are ongoing.
The situation in the Dnipropetrovsk region remains tense. The front line is constantly shifting, and the region is under increased enemy pressure. Ukrainian units continue to defend, but threats to populated areas persist.
At the same time, fierce fighting is taking place in the forested area west of Novoselivka. Here, the enemy is trying to expand its presence along the flanks, creating new gray zones and putting more pressure on our positions. For now, the defense is holding in Ternov, but the situation there is tense. The Russians are actively targeting our fortifications with FPV drones and are trying to gradually choke this resistant stronghold. It's becoming increasingly difficult to hold on. Additionally, there is information that the enemy has entrenched itself in the eastern part of Novonikolayevka, which is located west of the settlement of Zaporizhzhia. It's not yet a matter of a full capture, but if the occupiers appear on the approaches to Kalinivsky, that will be a serious signal of their bridgehead expanding.
Unique footage has appeared online. The crew of a Ukrainian Mi-8 helicopter chases, targets, and shoots down a Russian-Iranian heavy kamikaze drone, the Shahed 136, with fire from its onboard machine gun. Brilliant work by the Ukrainian Air Force. And now think about this. NATO spent at least €1,200,000 to shoot down cheap UAVs that flew into Poland. That is €400,000 per drone. This was reported by Bild. The article states that F-35s and AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles, each costing about €400,000, were used to shoot down the drones. And 3 such missiles were used. At the same time, the cost of an entire drone amounts to just a few €1,000s. A high-ranking NATO official admitted that regularly using F-35s to destroy UAVs is pointless, and the alliance is considering other countermeasures. The publication writes that NATO could learn from Ukraine, which shoots down drones with mobile fire teams and has special equipment for detecting them. And now we return to news from the Ukrainian front. Footage of a failed operation by Russian paratroopers, filmed by one of the Russian servicemen, is going viral online. A Ukrainian drone detected the movement of the enemy BMD-2 column with paratroopers in time. Along the way, the Russian paratroopers encountered dozens of burned-out and abandoned vehicles left from previous assaults. By the middle of the route, the assault ends before it even begins. Because when trying to bypass the traffic jam of burned-out vehicles, the lead BMD-2 loses a road wheel. The armored group comes under artillery fire. The enemy unsuccessfully tries to pull out the stuck vehicle and eventually retreats. And there are dozens of such situations on the front every day. And finally, let me share this story. Mobilized Russian Armed Forces serviceman Danil Akayev, call sign Borzy, addressed those who believe that you can get rich quickly in war. According to him, soldiers die every day, and he himself ended up at the front against his will. He recorded a video message in which he showed body bags and the charred bodies of his fellow soldiers.
This message is for those who say that we just get this big money here for nothing, like 200,000. But that's all nonsense. Look, the guys are dying, burning up, lying here. We collect them, us and no one else.
I never cease to admire the Ukrainian warriors. The Russian army at the front is 3 times larger, but our heroes are holding their positions and even advancing in some places. Write them some warm words of support in the comments. I have many friends there and I know they watch us. It's not hard for you, but it means a lot to them. Ukrainian forces carried out a large-scale missile and drone attack on Crimea. As a result, minus the headquarters building with a bunch of dead officers, a communications post, and artillery depots. A direct hit on the target.
I simply can't seem to be able to see it at all.
This is how the Ukrainian armed forces sent their regards to the Russian occupiers on the peninsula. A strike on the headquarters. The strike targeted the 40th Command and Measurement Complex of the Center for Deep Space Communications of the Russian Aerospace Forces, located in the village of Vitino. The strike was likely carried out by 2 jet-powered drones. Earlier, a missile strike also destroyed the artillery depots of the Dnieper troop grouping, located in the settlement of Solneknaya Dolina. But that's not all. Last night, the main intelligence directorate successfully struck a Russian Black Sea Fleet ship near Novorossiysk. The vessel was conducting electronic reconnaissance near the Novorossiysk Bay. A precise strike by a Ukrainian UAV on the control bridge destroyed the communications and electronic warfare equipment, disabling the ship. The ship is valued at $60 million. Recently, Ukraine has been attacking the occupied peninsula with remarkable regularity. I am eagerly awaiting the next attack on the Crimean bridge. I'm confident it will happen because Crimea is Ukraine. Like this video if you agree with this axiom. When I see this video, I just get tears in my eyes. This is the high-profile murder of a Ukrainian refugee in the city of Charlotte. All of America is talking about it right now. On August 22nd, around 10 in the evening, Irina Zarutska was returning home from her job at a pizzeria. The young woman entered the subway, sat down in a seat, and her killer sat behind her. At some point, he pulls out a knife and stabs the girl several times in a row. But for ethical reasons, we cannot show you that particular moment. Afterwards, you can see that the girl is frightened. She managed to see her killer. But what horrifies me even more is that not a single person who was near Irina even tried to help her. You can see the girl covering her face with her hands and simply starting to cry as she loses consciousness and eventually dies. At this moment, your heart just breaks. The killer turned out to be a 35-year-old black man named Carlos Brown, a repeat offender with serious mental disorders. Shortly before the tragedy, he had been released from court on a written promise. Brown was homeless with a long criminal history, armed robberies, assaults. He also suffers from schizophrenia. As it turned out, he thought the victim was reading his mind. And after the murder, he said, "I got a white girl." So perhaps the motive was racial hatred. And you know, Irina herself had a poster at home with a phrase supporting black people. Subsequently, even Donald Trump commented on the murder and called for the death penalty for the perpetrator.
The animal who brutally killed a beautiful young woman from Ukraine who came to America seeking peace and safety should receive a swift trial and the only punishment, death.
And Elon Musk promised to allocate funds for a memorial in honor of the Ukrainian woman. Now, a little about the young woman herself. In the spring of 2022, she and her family moved from Ukraine to the United States, fleeing the war. Irina was also studying to become an art restorer in Ukraine. Those who knew her remember her as a friendly and kind person. May Irina's memory be eternal, and my sincere condolences to all her family and friends. I'm genuinely surprised by the fact that so many people from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and even Europe and the USA watched the last episode, and by how many people support Ukraine. Thank you for that. I'm curious, from which country are you watching this particular episode? Be sure to write it in the comments. I'll be happy to read and reply to the comments I like most this evening. But for now, let's continue. Now comes the most interesting part. The Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has sent a message to Ukraine, Europe, and the President of the United States, Donald Trump, that he will not back down. By intensifying airstrikes, the dictator is firmly demonstrating that he will be the one to dictate the terms for ending Russia's war against Ukraine. This is reported by the New York Times. Both publicly and privately, Putin is demonstrating confidence that Russia's advantage on the battlefield against Ukraine is only growing. According to analysts and people close to the Kremlin, his goal is to convince Ukraine that resisting Russia's military machine is futile. On Sunday, Moscow carried out the largest missile and drone attack on Ukraine since the start of the war. Then, on Wednesday, tensions with the West sharply escalated when numerous Russian drones entered Polish territory, making a dramatic incursion into the airspace of a NATO country. These attacks signaled a new level of aggression from Russia. Moreover, after the summit with US President Donald Trump, the Russian dictator remained mostly silent regarding Ukraine.
Kiev's allies in Europe. Putin warns that they are in danger if they go through with their plans to deploy troops in Ukraine. To Trump, Putin makes it clear that he will not compromise on his core demands, even though he claims that Russia is still open to a deal.
What do you think? Can Trump stop Putin, or will only death stop this madman? By the way, like all Ukrainians, I sincerely wish for that. Like this video, if you agree. On September 10th, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a defense bill for $892.6 billion for the year 2026, which will begin on October 1st. Despite opposition from many Republicans, this budget includes $400 million for a security assistance program for Ukraine. The New York Times reports this. Both Democrats and Republicans rejected the proposal by Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene to cut this funding for Ukraine. The bill also includes a requirement for the Pentagon to report to Congress if the administration plans to cancel or suspend assistance to Ukraine that has already been approved by the U.S. Congress. After the House of Representatives vote, the document must be approved by the Senate. And one more piece of good news, the United Kingdom will produce Ukrainian interceptor drones. Defense Minister Denis Shmyhal announced that he reached an agreement to sign such a deal with his British counterpart, John Healey, following up on the arrangements made between President Zelensky and UK Prime Minister Starmer. Initially, the plan is to manufacture the first 1,000 drones, which will then be delivered to Ukraine.
Interceptor drones have already proven themselves effective against Russia's Shahed terror attacks. We will continue to scale up these projects, attract investment, and improve technologies to protect Ukrainian cities and civilians from Russian air attacks as effectively as possible. During the meeting with John Healey in London, we discussed the practical implementation of the agreement. This is a significant step in implementing the agreement on the century-long partnership between Ukraine and Britain. We also summed up the results of the Ramstein format meeting and coordinated the agenda for the next meeting, which will take place in October. Thank you to the United Kingdom for its leadership and support.
Well, we thank our partners for their support. Their work is impressive, robots serving in the armed forces of Ukraine. They help save the lives of Ukrainian defenders by reaching places where people cannot go. Caring for the lives and health of its personnel, the leadership of the Ukrainian army is increasingly deploying ground-based drones at the front. The Russian occupiers can only dream of such things, since no one cares about their lives.
Combat, logistics, evacuation, engineering, reconnaissance. This is just a partial list of the types of ground robotic systems, or GRS. In the fourth year of the war, it's hard to imagine how Ukraine could successfully resist Russia without these machines. Previously, GRS were ineffective, but now they truly save the lives of Ukrainian soldiers. You can fight for a long time, you can fight in different ways, but life, unfortunately, is very fragile and incredibly valuable. And in order not to pay a high price in the war against the enemy, we try to use drones. It's cheaper than fighting with people. The main goal of using GRS is to preserve human life. Right now, on the front line in the gray zone, infantry movement is almost certain suicide, because this is the territory of FPV drones, which can wait for a target for days in sleep mode. GRS are excellent at delivering ammunition and supplies. Tasks are carried out logistically along with evacuation operations. This is the delivery of supplies. We work at the supply position, evacuating the wounded. With the help of these robots, we save the lives of servicemen. Even if one hits a mine, we only lose metal, not a person. They perform extremely well on the job, 100%. One example is the logistic NRK Lynx, which can transport up to 200 kilograms of cargo, for instance, evacuate 2 wounded soldiers. It operates at a range of 20 kilometers, meaning it can deliver or pick up cargo 10 kilometers away and return to the operator. This ground drone is capable of incredible feats. It operates in tandem with an aerial drone which serves as the Lynx's eyes. It hit a mine and lost 3 wheels. Even on a single wheel, it delivered supplies to the position without any issues. So it proved itself very well in this work. Currently, 47% of all UGV missions are for logistics and evacuation tasks. About 25% are for engineering, mine laying, and demining. Roughly 12% are combat missions, and the rest are special missions. The Lynx, Targan, and Termite are far from a complete list of UGVs used on the front line. Currently, Ukraine has many specialists in this sector and is a world leader in UGV production. This is because UGVs are immediately tested on the battlefield and all shortcomings are eliminated. The speed and ingenuity of Ukrainian engineers are impressive. Many teams quickly adapt to the needs of the front line. Some solutions are still at early stages, but others are already showing significant potential for integration into more complex architectures. Ukraine has already established itself as a key player in combat robotics. Nikita Makushin, head of Milrem Robotics. In just the first quarter of 2025, the Defense Procurement Agency purchased more than 8,000 robots. In total, the state plans to order 15,000 UGVs this year, which is 15 times more than last year. Reducing personnel losses and accomplishing combat missions, these are tasks that Ukrainian UGVs handle excellently.
Meanwhile, in temporarily occupied Donetsk, life continues to be lively. There's still no water there, but now things have gotten even more interesting. A resident of Donetsk went to get water, but while she was taking it up in the elevator, she got stuck because the power was also cut off.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Listen, this is already something out of science fiction. So at 19 Razdolnaya, I went to my friend's place, got some water and did my laundry. And in the end, I had to use the elevator because there's no electricity. Come on, guys.
Seriously, guys, they promised that life in the DPR would get better, but it's just not happening. Friendship like madness only grows stronger. China is preparing to open its domestic bond market to major Russian energy companies. This is reported by the Financial Times. Beijing may allow the largest Russian energy companies, such as Rosatom and Gazprom, to issue bonds on the domestic market. This would be the first time funds are raised in yuan since the start of the full-scale war in 2022. All the details are in the report.
These so-called best friends, but in reality it looks less like a friendship and more like an alliance between the strong and the dependent. And yes, we're talking about China, which is strengthening its position, and Russia, which is clinging to its only support.
Our very close interaction truly reflects the significant strategic nature of Russian-Chinese relations, which are currently at an unprecedentedly high and excellent level.
It is reported that China is preparing to open its domestic bond market to Russian energy companies. For the first time since 2017, Russian companies are planning to issue debt on this market.
Now, China is allowing Russian companies to enter its market and issue shares. Why? So that these instruments can be used to lend to Russia. Formally, these will be loans to energy companies, but in reality, it will be loans to the Russian state. In other words, a kind of hidden form of state lending just disguised in various forms. Why? So that there is no legal basis to accuse China of assisting Russia, and accordingly, so that China does not risk facing secondary sanctions.
We're talking about the issuance of so-called panda bonds, securities denominated in yuan available for purchase by Chinese investors. But what about the sanctions? Is China really not afraid of secondary restrictions?
I think that a special legal entity will be created. Entities that previously did not operate will be used for this activity, because if the legal entity is in any way connected to Russian entities under sanctions, it would trigger secondary restrictions for Chinese banks, and they don't want that. Accordingly, Russian import companies need to have some kind of connection somewhere, but unofficially by creating other companies, and these other companies will be the ones to borrow money in China.
It is expected that Rosatom and its subsidiaries, which are not subject to Western sanctions, will be among the first borrowers. But why not? Russia will get the money right away, and in yuan too, since access to other major currencies is restricted. But what are the downsides?
Laris, in reality, the issue is that China will know exactly who is behind each company, and if debts are not repaid, China will take over these companies. So imagine a situation, though I realize it sounds unrealistic for now, but what if state-owned companies end up in Chinese ownership?
Of course, for China, this is not just a matter of goodwill either. It's an opportunity to strengthen the yuan's position as an international currency and to open up new investment opportunities. But just as important is the increased dependence of Russia itself on Chinese decisions.
China will become an even larger owner of valuable assets in the Russian economy, and as a result, Russia's economic dependence on China will continue to grow. There is already a term, yuanization of the Russian economy, hinting that the yuan has become the main currency and that China can exert greater influence over Russia's economy. But now this influence will reach an even larger scale.
Earlier, Putin and Xi also signed a memorandum on the construction of Power of Siberia 2, something China had long been reluctant to agree to. Nevertheless, Putin even stated that the prices for China would be market-based.
This is a mutually beneficial project. As for the prices, first, they are of a market nature, and second, they are calculated using essentially the same formula as was used for supplies to Europe.
Interesting. He doesn't actually say it's the same price, but it's as if he's starting to justify himself a little.
In Europe, there are some prices, in Asia others, and the formula determines the prices. So,
what does this mean? Is the price really basically the same, or is it actually the opposite?
Panda bonds and Power of Siberia 2, regarding China's desire to buy below cost, and it's unlikely that China would give up on its demands.
Panda bonds and Power of Siberia 2 illustrate the essence of the relationship between Russia and China. China is strengthening its position thanks to Moscow's growing dependence. One way or another, this dependence is becoming increasingly obvious, and the balance is clearly not in Putin's favor.
Latvia has decided to close its airspace along the border with Russia and Belarus for a week. This was announced on social media by the country's defense minister Andris Sprads. According to him, this decision, with the possibility of extension, was made after an assessment by the Latvian army.
The airspace will be closed from today at 1800 for at least 1 week until September 18th. There is no immediate threat. However, the army is on high alert during the comprehensive national defense exercises at Mais.
The closure of the airspace in this area will allow for full control of the restricted air zone and make it easier to detect unauthorized flying objects, the minister explained. Let me remind you, as we have already reported, that after the incursion of Russian drones, Poland's airspace, Sprads instructed the National Armed Forces to consider the possibility of closing the airspace on the eastern border. On September 11th, the Polish Air Navigation Agency announced that air traffic along the border with Ukraine and Belarus would be restricted for 3 months for reasons of national security. What do you think? Will the Kremlin's attacks on NATO countries happen again? The Kremlin is afraid of soldiers returning from the front. Reuters reports on this. The agency reports that the Kremlin fears destabilization when hundreds of thousands of soldiers, including pardoned convicts, return from the war against Ukraine. Putin is afraid of a repeat of the 1990s, when Afghan war veterans became a source of a crime wave. According to Russian media, just last year, veterans of the war in Ukraine killed at least 242 people and seriously injured 227. All the details are coming up next.
The political situation in Russia is becoming more tense due to personnel issues, and there remain significant risks associated with Russian soldiers returning from the front. Reuters warned about this, having interviewed sources close to the Kremlin and experts. According to their information, this very elite returning from the front poses a threat to public stability and to the political system itself.
I think, yes, the time of heroes has come, and that's wonderful.
The true, real elite are all those who serve Russia, workers and warriors alike.
At the beginning of 2025, more than 1.5 million people were fighting on Russia's side in the war, among them a considerable number of prisoners who were pardoned in exchange for participating in combat operations.
All of us had already been labeled on the shore as either acceptable for reintegration into society or undesirable returnees from the special military operation zone.
However, horrifying stories keep surfacing in the media from time to time.
One of the most shocking episodes was the story of Azamat Iskaliev, who had been convicted of murdering his wife and was released early for serving at the front. Upon returning home, he attacked his former girlfriend, inflicting more than 60 stab wounds, and ended up back behind bars, this time for 19 years.
The repeat offender Azamat Iskaliev has been sentenced for the brutal murder of his girlfriend.
This is footage from a surveillance camera, the main evidence of the particular cruelty in this shocking criminal case. In the frame is Azamat Iskaliev, now convicted for the third time.
When he turned around, I sent the guys after him, or something like that, and followed him.
According to some reports, among the victims returned by the military, there are at least 242 dead and 227 seriously wounded civilians. This is the new elite of Russia.
It is precisely from these people that we should form the country's elite in the future. But the true elite of the country, to whom Russia can be entrusted, must be formed from these people.
Another case is the life sentence given to Ruslan Shingiri, a war participant found guilty of the rape and murder of an 8-year-old girl. In
the Rostov region, a tow truck driver was convicted for brutally killing an 8-year-old girl. A year ago, he offered the trusting schoolgirl a ride. Sometime later, her body, showing signs of violence, was found in the forest.
The bags were left behind.
So you were already strangling her during the rape? Yes.
The authorities are trying to manage the situation. The Kremlin is launching programs to integrate veterans into public and political life, offering career prospects and their participation in elections.
Of course, they are the new elite of our country. And of course, all doors should be open to them. All roads should be open to them, just like the military life of our country.
Experts warn that such a large number of people with war trauma and criminal backgrounds could become the cause of new upheavals. Returning from the front is not only a demographic challenge, it is a matter of security, politics, and social stability. Moreover, the scale of the threat is obvious.
Our hearts will be filled with pride for our people, for our nation, and for these individuals in particular. People like them, without a doubt, will not back down. These are the people who should take leading positions in the education system and in youth upbringing, in public organizations, in state companies, in business, in government and municipal administration, ultimately heading regions, enterprises, and the largest domestic projects.
Well, Russia just keeps hitting new lows? Just listen. The Kremlin's propaganda mouthpieces have been given a new set of talking points. Allegedly, Ukrainian special forces in Lithuania are creating drones that look like Russian ones and launching them into Poland. Brilliant. There's nothing more to add.
Today, around 4 a.m., a large-scale provocation was carried out from Lithuanian territory against Poland by the forces of the 8th Regiment of the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces. Special Forces soldiers disguised in Lithuanian uniforms launched a mass drone attack into Poland to carry out an operation, the consequences of which we are all witnessing today. All services were notified in advance, including our Belarusian colleagues. We are maintaining calm.
The head of the Center for Countering Disinformation, Alexander Kovalenko, writes that the Russians have significantly intensified information operations in the US and Poland against the backdrop of two events, the murder of Charlie Kirk and the drone incursion into Poland. According to him, in the wake of Kirk's murder in the US, Russian networks disguised as American are promoting narratives about MAGA versus everyone else. This is an attempt to sow division. They are also doing everything possible to prevent unity around issues concerning Ukrainians and Ukraine after the murder of the Ukrainian woman near Rudskaya.
In Poland, Russia has long established a propaganda infrastructure on social media. With their bot farms, they spread accusations against Ukraine regarding drones and threats to Poland. At the same time, they are playing on political issues within Poland itself, since the last election showed that society is almost evenly split 50-50 in terms of political views. That's why they are betting on division over topics like Ukraine, Germany, and the actions of the Polish authorities, such as the expensive missiles used to shoot down drones. And on many other issues as well, such as housing availability for young people and salary levels compared to Germans. All of this is being orchestrated by the Russians. Russia's goal today is to destabilize Polish society, to deepen divisions and create internal tension. Why is Russia doing this? It's clear. And it's not just about the war against Ukraine, there's also the Baltics, which are close to Poland. And Russia has had its eye on the Baltics for a long time. It's also the key military power in Eastern Europe, including economically. There are also historical issues of confrontation between Moscow and Warsaw. Accordingly, Russia is waging a covert hybrid war against Poland. And it's been going on for a very long time, even before our full-scale war. Now it's only getting worse.
What do you think? What new lie will Russia come up with next? How do you like our news? Let us know what we should change to become better. We'll definitely take it into account. In the meantime, please like this video to support what we do and be sure to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss future episodes. See you soon!